Hollywood's history books worship 2001, A Space Odyssey, and Planet of the Apes, but let's be honest, some of the boldest, wildest American sci-fi of the 1960s barely gets a mention. Why are these hidden gems still in the shadows? Stick around, because what you're about to discover proves these overlooked classics deserve way more credit. Robinson Crusoe on Mars 1964. Here's a question. How do you survive when you're stranded on Mars with nothing but your wits, a monkey, and a handful of rations? Robinson Crusoe on Mars dared to answer that before it was cool, before Matt Damon ever farmed a potato in a Hollywood blockbuster. This film dropped astronaut Kit Draper on the Red Planet long before real NASA astronauts ever left Earth's gravity. Instead of laser battles or little green men, you get the gritty, sweaty anxiety of a man facing pure isolation on an alien world. What makes this movie more than just a sci-fi castaway tale is its surprising devotion to science. Director Byron Haskin didn't want Martian magic, he wanted plausible survival. He had his team consult with NASA scientists, cooked up believable ways to extract oxygen from rocks, and created a planet landscape out of Death Valley's desolate beauty. The orange-hued skies and rugged canyons make the Martian surface feel real and hostile. Add in a companion monkey and a relentless alien spaceship overhead, and suddenly, survival feels like a ticking clock you can almost hear in your own living room. Critics brushed off Robinson Crusoe on Mars as a kid's adventure, but it's so much more. NASA astronauts loved it. Apollo 12 Commander Pete Conrad reportedly screened it for inspiration during real-life training. The film didn't just survive the box office, it thrived in the imaginations of scientists, engineers, and sci-fi fans who saw the human side of space travel. Its legacy is the blueprint for every Lost in Space story that followed, proving sometimes the quietest, most personal journeys are the most thrilling of all. Seconds 1966. Ever wished you could shed your old life and start fresh, with a new face, a new name, maybe even a new destiny? Seconds takes that fantasy and turns it into a dark, twisted nightmare that will haunt you for days. Rock Hudson, famous for his romantic leading man roles, smashes his image to pieces here. He plays a middle-aged man so desperate for a do-over that he pays a shadowy company to fake his death and give him a new identity. Sounds like a dream, right? Not even close. What follows is a descent into paranoia and existential dread. Director John Frankenheimer uses wild camera angles and strange, distorted lenses that make every frame feel like you're trapped in a funhouse gone wrong. The film's famous beach party sequence was filmed with hidden cameras on real California hippies, blurring the line between movie and reality. Studio executives didn't know what to make of it. They buried the release, and audiences at Cannes actually booed. Critics called it too weird, too disturbing, too far ahead of its time. But time has been kind to Seconds. Today, it's a cult classic, praised for its chilling look at identity, regret, and the high price of running from yourself. Rock Hudson called it the toughest job of his career, and it shows. If you've ever wondered how far you'd go to erase your past, Seconds is the cautionary tale you didn't know you needed. It's not just a sci-fi thriller, it's a gut punch that asks, are you sure you really want to start over? Fantastic Voyage, 1966. Let's get small, microscopically small. Fantastic Voyage takes science fiction and literally shrinks it down to size. In this wild adventure, a team of scientists is miniaturized, along with their submarine, and injected into the bloodstream of a wounded diplomat. Their mission? Save his life from the inside before they return to normal size. It's as thrilling as it sounds, with every heartbeat counting down the minutes before disaster strikes. What makes Fantastic Voyage unforgettable isn't just the wild premise, it's the dazzling special effects. Production designers turned human arteries and organs into giant, pulsating sets. Over 8,000 gallons of red-tinted liquid flowed through transparent tubes to simulate the circulatory system, while the brainstorm sequence feels like a surreal fever dream. Director Richard Fleischer was obsessed with scientific accuracy, bringing in medical experts to make every scene feel as real as possible. The effects team bagged 2 Academy Awards for their work, proving practical effects can trump digital tricks any day. Isaac Asimov, the legendary sci-fi writer, even stepped in to fix scientific problems in the script and wrote a novelization that hit shelves before the film's release. Audiences thought the movie was based on his book, not the other way around. Fantastic Voyage became more than just a box office hit. It was a favorite in classrooms, inspiring young minds about the wonders of science and medicine. It's pure adventure, pure imagination, and proof that you don't need to leave Earth to go where no one's gone before. X, The Man with the X-Ray Eyes, 1963. Here's a classic question. What if you could see through anything? Most people would call that a superpower, but X, The Man with the X-Ray Eyes, shows how a gift can turn into a nightmare. Ray Milland plays Dr. James Xavier, a scientist who invents eye drops that give him the ability to see through walls, skin, and eventually through reality itself. At first, it's a medical miracle. He diagnoses patients with just a glance, but soon he can't shut it off. The world becomes layers upon layers of horror. Director Roger Corman pulls no punches with the visuals. The special effects, done with painted models and refraction lenses, still hold up as truly unsettling. There are scenes where you'll feel as if you're seeing something you shouldn't, a glimpse behind the curtain of reality. Milland, an Academy Award winner, brings both genius and madness to the role, wearing uncomfortable contact lenses that added real pain and disorientation to his performance. The movie's reputation grew after rumors swirled about a darker, never-seen ending that the studio supposedly censored. Whatever the truth, the version that survived is enough to make you think twice about ever wishing for more vision. X, The Man with the X-Ray Eyes, isn't just a low-budget curiosity. It's a parable about the dangers of unchecked ambition and a reminder that sometimes ignorance really is bliss. It's still as unsettling now as it was when audiences first blinked at its chilling final scenes. The First Men in the Moon, 1964. Before Apollo missions made lunar landings real, First Men in the Moon dared to imagine a Victorian trip to our closest cosmic neighbor. This film adapts H.G. Wells's legendary novel with pure adventure spirit and a huge helping of old-school sci-fi wonder. What if the first flag on the moon wasn't American at all, but British, planted by an eccentric inventor and his skeptical companions, using a homemade spaceship powered by a wild new cavorite metal? Ray Harryhausen's legendary stop-motion creatures steal the show. The Selenites, giant insect-like lunar dwellers, creep through crystal caves with a sense of menace you can't fake. Every frame of these moon monsters was hand-animated, making each movement a testament to Harryhausen's skill and patience. The film's lunar sets, built on a shoestring budget, would later inspire directors from James Cameron to Tim Burton, showing that creativity often comes from limits, not luxury. On its release, critics called it a children's fantasy, ignoring its revolutionary special effects and clever script. But real sci-fi fans know better. First Men in the Moon influenced a generation of filmmakers, inspired special effects artists, and helped pave the way for modern lunar epics. If you want a true adventure that blends science, imagination, and a pinch of British wit, this overlooked gem is your ticket to another world. The Time Travelers, 1964. Let's talk about time travel. The kind that doesn't come with sports cars, DeLoreans, or fancy flux capacitors. The Time Travelers is the scrappy, underdog sci-fi flick that most fans never heard of. But trust me, it's the missing link between 1950s B-movies and the trippy, mind-bending adventures that would define the next decade. The setup: a team of scientists accidentally open a portal into the far future. And what's waiting for them on the other side? Ruins, mutants, and a desperate civilization on the brink of extinction. It all starts in a basement lab with a makeshift time window. In a flash, the team is catapulted to a devastated Earth where humanity is huddled underground, fighting for survival. The special effects are pure 60s magic, clever camera tricks, reverse film, and stop motion that make you feel like you're actually peeking into another era. The film doesn't just settle for monsters and weird landscapes. It asks big questions. What would we do if we saw the end of our own civilization? Would we change or just double down on our worst instincts? Sure, it's a product of its time. There are rubber suits and over-the-top acting, but there's a sly intelligence bubbling under the surface. The movie's twist ending, involving an infinite time loop, was ahead of its time and left viewers scratching their heads. For decades, The Time Travelers has been overshadowed by flashier films, but if you're hungry for a sci-fi story that swings for the fences with a tiny budget and big ambition, this is the movie that deserves a second look. It's the kind of flick that sticks with you long after the portal closes. Moon 02, 1969. Think westerns are only about dusty saloons and outlaws? Think again. Moon 02 brings the lawless frontier to outer space in what might be the wildest mashup you never knew existed. A space western before that was even a thing. Set in the year 2021, yes, really, the moon has become the new Wild West, complete with claim jumpers, bounty hunters, and a crooked mining magnate itching to rewrite the lunar rulebook. The story follows Bill Kemp, an ex-astronaut turned freelance pilot who's just trying to make an honest living shuttling junk across the moon. But when he's hired for a risky job bringing down a valuable asteroid, it sets off a chain reaction of double crosses, lunar bar fights, and high-stakes showdowns. The film's sets are pure 1960s retro futurism, brightly colored moon buggies, swinging lunar lounges, and neon-lit spaceports that look like a disco on Mars. Sure, there's camp and kitsch, but there's also a clever nod to classic Western tropes, from the showdown at high noon, or rather, high Earthrise, to the small band of good guys standing up to corruption. Originally dismissed as a colorful oddity, Moon 02 has become a cult favorite for anyone who loves their science fiction with a side of swagger. It's goofy, it's stylish, and it's got enough lunar action to keep you grinning from liftoff to landing. If you ever wondered what would happen if a Western and a space race movie collided, this is the wild ride you've been missing. Don't let the critics fool you. Sometimes, the weirdest mashups turn into the most memorable adventures. The Power 1968. Buckle up for The Power, a film that dropped psychic phenomena into the lab and ran with it before mind control became a sci-fi cliché. This movie isn't about capes, costumes, or alien invasions. Instead, it's a deadly serious thriller about a group of scientists who discover that one of their own isn't just smart. He's got mental powers that defy explanation. Suddenly, people start dying in bizarre accidents, and paranoia spreads like wildfire. Who is the real danger in the room? And how do you stop someone who can kill with a thought? The Power stands out for its sharp pacing and its refusal to play by the usual monster movie rules. Director Byron Haskin crafts a film loaded with suspense, using tilted camera angles, shadowy lighting, and jump cuts to make viewers feel as jittery as the characters. The story keeps you guessing with every twist. Are these scientists just victims of a prank, or is someone among them manipulating reality itself? George Hamilton and Suzanne Pleshette anchor the cast, bringing a sense of real-world gravity to the mind-bending premise. The score, by Miklos Rosa, is all eerie strings and pounding percussion, raising your pulse as the tension ratchets higher. Critics mostly miss the film's intelligence and psychological depth, dismissing it as another pulpy thriller. But look closer, and you'll find a proto-X-Men story that was tackling questions of power, paranoia, and trust decades before it was cool. The Power is the rare kind of sci-fi that doesn't show you the monster. It puts it in your mind and lets it grow. The Last Man on Earth, 1964. Imagine waking up one day and realizing you're the last person left in the city. Not just any city, but a world where everyone else has been transformed into aggressive, zombie-like beings by a mysterious plague. Welcome to The Last Man on Earth, a movie that gave us Vincent Price at his haunted best and basically invented the post-apocalyptic survival story long before it became a genre mainstay. Forget fancy effects or action set pieces. This film is pure atmosphere and existential dread. Price plays Dr. Robert Morgan, a man clinging to routines and sanity as he hunts down the infected by day and barricades himself at night. The streets are empty, the air is thick with tension, and the threat never really goes away. Every night is a battle for survival, not just from the creatures outside, but from the crushing loneliness inside. Shot in stark black and white on the outskirts of Rome, the film feels like a waking nightmare, every abandoned building echoing Morgan's isolation. The Last Man on Earth's influence is massive. It's the first real adaptation of Richard Matheson's I Am Legend, and George Romero openly credited it as the inspiration for Night of the Living Dead. Vincent Price delivers a performance that's all heartbreak and grit, elevating what could have been a simple horror flick into a meditation on what it means to be human. If you think zombie stories started in the 70s, think again. This is where the blueprint was drawn, and it's every bit as eerie now as it was then. The Creation of the Humanoids, 1962. Here's a sci-fi gem that nobody saw coming. The Creation of the Humanoids is the rare movie that spends less time on explosions and more time on existential dread. Imagine a world after nuclear catastrophe where humanity is fading and robots called humanoids are picking up the slack. Rather than go for easy robot rebellion tropes, the film digs into questions of identity, fear, and the nature of progress. shot almost entirely in static sets with long stretches of dialogue. The movie feels more like a stage play than a standard drive-in thriller. That's actually its secret weapon. Characters debate the ethics of artificial intelligence, the meaning of the soul, and the future of society with a seriousness that's almost shocking for an early 60s film. The story centers on a group that despises humanoids, blaming them for humanity's decline. As the plot unspools, you begin to realize the lines between man and machine aren't as clear as anyone thinks. The creation of the humanoids was ignored and mocked on its release. Audiences wanted monsters, not philosophy, but its reputation has grown as later generations recognized just how prescient it was. If you want your sci-fi loud and fast, this isn't your movie. But if you want ideas that stick with you, challenging everything you think about technology and humanity, it's an underrated masterpiece that deserves a seat at the table with the best. Sometimes, the scariest future is the one where we don't even know ourselves. Journey to the Seventh Planet, 1962. Ever wondered what happens when astronauts' wildest dreams and darkest fears become reality? Journey to the Seventh Planet might look like a typical Cold War sci-fi on the surface, but beneath the pulpy poster art is a weirdly haunting mind-bender. The premise: a team of astronauts, representing an international alliance, blasts off for Uranus. They expect cold rocks and cosmic loneliness. What they find is their own memories, manifested and weaponized by an alien force. This movie refuses to play it safe. The landscapes of Uranus are surreal, with forests, towns, and even beautiful women plucked straight from the crew's subconscious. The film's low-budget special effects end up adding to the dreamlike quality: impossibly misty forests, glowing force fields, and the sinister, disembodied brain that controls it all. The real terror isn't monsters, but the realization that the enemy knows you better than you know yourself. Behind the camp and B-movie trappings, Journey to the Seventh Planet sneaks in heavy questions. How do you fight an enemy that lives in your head? What if your greatest threat is your own desire? Sure, there are rubber creatures and psychedelic visuals, but this film's biggest trick is making you wonder what would happen if you had to face your deepest fears with nowhere to hide. It may not have had a Hollywood budget, but it delivers a story that sticks with you long after the trip ends. If you want a cosmic journey that's more about the mind than outer space, this is your ticket. The Angry Red Planet, 1960. Mars has never looked weirder or more terrifying than in The Angry Red Planet. This movie opens with a tantalizing mystery. Only 2 crew members return from the first mission to Mars, and neither can explain what really happened. The rest of the film unfolds in flashback, revealing a wild ride across a planet filled with giant amoebas, bat-rat spider monsters, and landscapes that look like someone mixed a fever dream with a 1950s comic book. What sets this film apart is its audacious sin magic process, which bathes every Martian sequence in a blood-red glow. The result is both visually striking and deeply unsettling, making Mars feel truly alien. You won't forget the sight of a towering, tentacled eye peering through the fog, or the crew's desperate scramble to escape from a living, carnivorous plant. Sure, the effects are dated, but they're charming in the way only handmade sci-fi can be. But The Angry Red Planet isn't just about wild visuals. It's about survival. The story never lets up, always pushing the characters into new dangers, each more bizarre than the last. It captures the era's fascination with space exploration and the fear of the unknown, wrapping it all in a frantic, pulpy adventure that never slows down. For years, this movie was written off as drive-in fluff, but look closer and you'll see a film that embraces the joy and terror of true discovery. If you want old-school Martian weirdness, this one is a must. The Slime People, 1963. How do you make a monster movie terrifying on a shoestring budget? The Slime People answers that with pure creativity and a whole lot of fog. When an atomic test unleashes a race of subterranean creatures in Los Angeles, the city is quickly engulfed in mist, fear, and absolute chaos. The monsters themselves, hulking, scaly figures who ooze out of the ground, might not win any beauty contests, but their presence turns sunny LA into a post-apocalyptic wasteland. The film is famous, or maybe infamous, for how it uses practical effects to mask its budget. The endless fog, pumped onto the sets to hide the seams and create a sense of claustrophobia, ends up becoming a character in itself. Visibility drops, nerves fray, and the threat feels uncomfortably close at all times. The monsters' attacks are brutal, pushing the survivors to their breaking points and making every darkened corner a place to dread. But beneath the monster mayhem is a sneaky streak of social commentary. The Slime People aren't just threats from below, they're a warning about tampering with forces we don't understand. The film is quick, relentless, and unashamedly pulpy, but there's a rawness that makes it feel more urgent than many of its glossier competitors. If you're looking for a cult classic that does a lot with very little, and isn't afraid to get weird in the name of scares, this is the one to hunt down. The Atomic Submarine, 1960. Before The Hunt for Red October and all those modern underwater thrillers, there was The Atomic Submarine, a film that throws a nuclear-powered sub into the icy Arctic Circle on a mission to investigate mysterious ship disappearances. What starts as a tense Cold War drama quickly morphs into full-blown sci-fi chaos when the crew stumbles upon a glowing, cyclopean UFO lurking beneath the waves. This movie is a masterclass in genre blending. One minute, you're watching tight, procedural submarine action. The next, you're face-to-face with an alien intelligence bent on world domination. The design of the underwater UFO is wonderfully bizarre, all spinning lights and throbbing engines, with an interior that feels like it came straight out of a nightmare. When the crew boards the alien craft, things get truly wild. There's suspense, body horror, and a final confrontation that's way creepier than you'd expect for a film from 1960. The Atomic Submarine has been largely ignored by modern audiences, dismissed as just another drive-in relic. But it's smarter, faster, and stranger than its reputation suggests. It wrestles with the fear of invasion and the unknown, showing how even the mightiest technology can be humbled by what waits in the deep. If you love stories where the ocean is as mysterious as outer space, don't let this one stay buried. The Day Mars Invaded Earth, 1962. You think alien invasion movies are all explosions and armies in the streets? The Day Mars Invaded Earth flips the script with something much creepier: doppelgangers. When a NASA probe accidentally awakens something on Mars, a scientist and his family find themselves stalked by identical copies with sinister motives. The threat isn't armies or monsters, it's the fear that anyone you know might suddenly not be who you think. Set almost entirely at a lonely country estate, the film trades spectacle for suffocating paranoia. The sense of isolation is absolute. The suspense ratcheted up as the family realizes the invaders can't be fought, only outsmarted. The effects are simple, but the atmosphere is thick with dread. Director Maury Dexter keeps the story tight and the characters relatable, making their plight feel chillingly plausible. What makes The Day Mars Invaded Earth stand out isn't just its twisty plot, but how it turns the familiar into the frightening. In an era obsessed with rockets and ray guns, this movie dares to slow down and focus on suspense, delivering an invasion story that feels all too real. It's been overlooked for decades, but if you like your sci-fi with a side of psychological horror, this is a hidden gem that might just have you checking the mirror, just to make sure it's really you. What makes The Day Mars Invaded Earth stand out isn't just its twisty plot, but how it turns the familiar into the frightening. In an era obsessed with rockets and ray guns, this movie dares to slow down and focus on suspense, delivering an invasion story that feels all too real. It's been overlooked for decades, but if you like your sci-fi with a side of psychological horror, this is a hidden gem that might just have you checking the mirror, just to make sure it's really you.